I've always believed that living in a small town means living a simple life. Everyone knows everyone. Secrets don't last long. Or at least, that's what I thought until my neighbor, someone I barely noticed, changed everything with just one confession. My name is Daniel, and I live in Brook Hollow, a quiet little town where the loudest sound you'll hear is the church bell on Sundays. We wave at each other, bake pies for new neighbors, and pretend like nothing bad ever happens here. But life has this funny way of reminding us that behind every smiling door, there's a story we don't know. My neighbor across the street, Mr. Hale, was the perfect example of the kind of person you'd forget existed. He was old, quiet, kept his lawn trimmed perfectly, and rarely spoke. Kids would sometimes create creepy stories about him because his curtains were always shut. Adults didn't pay him much attention. And I didn't either. Just a nod when I'd see him at the mailbox. That's it. But everything changed last November. It was just after sunset. I was taking out the trash when I saw Mr. Hale collapse outside his front door. I rushed across the street, panic hitting me like a punch to the chest. He was conscious, but shaking, gripping his chest. "Hold on. I'm calling an ambulance," I said, trying to steady his breathing. No hospitals," he wheezed, gripping my wrist. His eyes were wide, terrified almost. "Please, come inside. I need to tell someone, before it's too late." I hesitated. Hospitals exist for moments like these, right? But something in his voice, this desperation, pushed me to follow him inside. His house was shockingly clean, everything arranged so perfectly I was afraid to take a step. He lowered himself into an armchair, breathing heavily. "I know you don't really know who I am," he began, voice trembling. "But you need to hear this, and you're the only one I trust." The only one he trusts? That made zero sense. I barely knew his last name until the mailman said it once, but I nodded and waited. He leaned forward, grimacing from the pain. 23 years ago, our town buried a lie, a terrible one, and now it's coming back. My heart thudded in my chest. "What do you mean?" He took a deep breath. "Do you remember the Holloway girl, Emily Holloway?" Emily. The name triggered a memory. The missing posters and old news clippings. My parents telling me never to wander off alone because of what happened to that poor girl. She was 9 years old when she disappeared. They searched for weeks. Nothing was found. The town eventually tried to forget. "Yes," I said quietly. "She went missing. They never found her." "That's what they wanted everyone to think," he whispered. "But they did find her. They just didn't want the truth getting out." My blood ran cold. Before I could form another question, his breathing got worse. I wanted to insist again on calling an ambulance, but he squeezed my hand with surprising strength. "There's a box," he said, "behind my bedroom closet. Take it. Make sure the truth comes out." His head fell back, eyes fluttering. He needed help. I dialed emergency services, hands shaking. They arrived fast, and as they rushed him onto a stretcher, he stared at me one last time. "Don't trust anyone," he whispered. "Not even the police." Then he was gone, loaded into the ambulance, leaving me with a pounding heart and questions that felt like nightmares. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning I checked the hospital. They told me he died shortly after arriving. A sudden heart failure, they said. And just like that, his confession became a burden only I carried. I drove back to his house, which was now taped off by police. They'd been through it already, I assumed. Whatever box he mentioned, if it even existed, was probably gone now. But something told me to look anyway. Later that night, after the officers left, I slipped inside through a window I found slightly open. The house felt different now, darker, heavier. I found his bedroom. Just like he said, the closet had a false back, and behind it, a metal box locked with an old latch. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside were photographs, documents, and a small locket. The same one from Emily Holloway's missing posters. My breath caught in my throat. There were also handwritten notes, dates, times, descriptions of places, and then a map. A map of Brook Hollow, One area circled in red. The abandoned mill. Suddenly, footsteps thudded outside. Heavy boots. I panicked, shoved everything back, but creaking floorboards were approaching fast. I grabbed the box and slipped quietly into the hall, then out the back door, barely escaping into the shadows. When I reached home, I spread the contents across my table. I needed clarity. The notes revealed everything. Mr. Hale was once a police officer. He hadn't just seen the case, he was assigned to it. And according to his written report, Emily had died. She'd been found in the old mill. It wasn't an accident. It was deliberate. And the worst part? He wrote a name. The sheriff. Our current Sheriff A.S. father, who was sheriff at the time, had been involved in covering up the crime to protect someone close to him. The report stated that Emily's killer was the sheriff's son, our current sheriff. I felt sick. Everything inside me screamed that this was too big for me to handle alone. But who could I go to? Mr. Hale said not to trust the police. If the sheriff knew I had this box. My phone buzzed, a call from an unknown number. I froze. Then, a message. You shouldn't have gone into that house. My stomach twisted into knots. Had someone seen me? Followed me? Suddenly my door was pounded aggressively. A voice boomed. Daniel! Open up! It's the sheriff! We need to talk! No. No way. I stayed silent, heart racing. Daniel! We know you were at Hale's house, he shouted. There's something you need to understand about that man. I didn't open the door. After a long pause, the knocking stopped. Tires screeched. He left. For now. I knew I couldn't stay home. I packed the box, grabbed my keys, and headed straight for the mill, the place marked in red. The moment I stepped inside, I regretted it. The air smelled rotten. The wooden beams creaked like bones. My flashlight beam shook as I swept it across the dusty floors. Then I saw them. Dig marks. Fresh ones. A patch of disturbed dirt near the wall. My stomach turned. Someone had been digging here, recently. Before I could react, I heard footsteps behind me. You should have stayed out of this, Daniel. I spun around. The sheriff stood there, gun drawn, eyes filled with cold fury. Mr. Hale wasn't a hero like you think, he growled. He was a disgraced officer obsessed with ruining my family. He kept fabricating stories, twisting the past, trying to destroy what's good in this town. I saw the evidence, I snapped. Emily was found here. Her locket, her photos. Evidence? He barked a laugh. That old fool planted those things. He wanted someone like you, someone naive, to pick up where he left off. I didn't believe him. Not one word. I know the truth, I said. And I'm not backing down. His smile fell. He raised the gun. You should have just ignored him like everyone else. Before he could fire, headlights flashed through the broken windows. A voice shouted, "Freeze! Drop your weapon!" 2 state investigators rushed in, guns pointed at the sheriff. He hesitated, but eventually lowered his weapon and fell to his knees, breathing hard. They cuffed him and pulled him to his feet while he screamed that he was innocent. As they led him out, one of the investigators approached me. "We saw you break into Hale's house yesterday," she said, "and found what you left behind. We've been tracking the Holloway case for years, hoping someone would slip." "So, it's true?" I whispered. She nodded slowly. "The sheriff covered up his own crime when he was a teenager. Hale tried to expose it, but was threatened and forced into silence. His guilt consumed him." My knees felt weak. The investigator steadied me. "You did the right thing," she said. "Because of you, Emily Holloway will finally get justice." But justice couldn't rewind time. It couldn't bring back a little girl who never had a chance to grow up. And it couldn't erase the image of a man who'd spent his whole life haunted by the truth, only to die before seeing it revealed. A week later, the town was buzzing with shock. The mill became a crime scene. Mr. Hale was no longer a forgotten old man. He was a hero. His house was cleared out. They found more notes, reports, and evidence that he'd gathered secretly for years. He never gave up. Not once. His funeral was crowded. Too crowded. Filled with people who never cared to know him while he was alive. They cried, whispered prayers, called him brave. But I kept thinking about the night he looked at me, terrified, as if death was chasing him. because it was. He knew exposing the truth would cost him everything. And still, he chose to confess. After the funeral, I placed the little locket, Emily's locket, on his grave. It felt like the smallest gesture in a sea of wrongs. As I stood there, the investigator approached again. "You should know," she said quietly. "Hale left a will. He named you. His house now belongs to you." I stared at her, stunned. "Why me?" "Maybe he saw someone who still believed in right and wrong," she replied. "Or maybe he just needed someone to finish what he started. I look across the street now and see his house differently. It isn't quiet anymore. It holds stories, painful ones, and a sense of justice finally rising to the surface. Brook Hollow will never be the same, and neither will I. Because I learned one truth that night. In small towns, secrets don't die. They just wait, quietly, for the right person to listen.